Well, welcome again to these videos on developing character in children. In this video, I'm going to talk about developing self-control as one piece of their character development. You'll recall that good character, and by the time children are in their teens or young adulthood, is the accumulation of virtues, self-control, courage, and so forth, that have been habituated. And you'll recall that has three components. There's a teaching or defining what is the virtue. That's the language that can be used over and over again. Secondly, it has to be stated in a way that it can be practiced. So you can't just talk vaguely or about some kind of virtue, and yet you have no way to realize it through means of practice on a regular basis. Then the third component is culture, which primarily has to do with modeling. An environment where children see that virtue being practiced by the adults around them. Now, it's well established in psychology that self-control is the most significant behavioral factor that leads to adult success and adult achievement, no matter what the field or domain is. Self-control is a core behavior toward fulfilling our goals, our dreams, our hopes, our aspirations. Realizing our potential requires self-control. Now, let me define self-control in a way not only that we can understand it, but how we will turn it into a practice to work with children. It has two major components. Number one, there's understanding and embracing goals toward growth, aspirations of developing potential, developing talents, and then understanding the pathway to get there. What are the skills I'm going to have to cultivate? What is the mindset I need to grow in order to achieve my goals? Then the second piece is also very important. It's understanding our passions, the things that give us the most pleasure, enjoyment, and happiness most immediately. And the things that's what we'll choose to do because it brings us quick enjoyment. We need to understand that about ourselves, our pleasure-seeking drive. These pleasures and passions, they're not bad. That's a part of life. And they might include, just sleeping longer, relaxing more, playing the games we want to play, enjoying various kinds of entertainment, none of which are wrong. But our passions want these pleasures now. That's the wrestling that we're going to see needs to take place between what are my goals and what I want to do now. Now, to help this brief definition, there's two components. I'm going to borrow a metaphor from a scholar, Professor Jonathan Haidt, H-A-I-D-T, from the University of Virginia. He's also the author of the Happiness Hypothesis. This is a great read and not too difficult. He looks at these two major components of self-control and reasoning, and he compares them to an elephant, passions, and a rider, the reasons, elephant and the rider. The picture is very vivid. The elephant, of course, is our passions, and the rider is our reasonings, which has assembled goals. The rider wants to go somewhere. He has direction, but he's riding an elephant. So clearly, the elephant is much more powerful than the rider. No matter how important the rider's goals are, no matter how noble are his wishes and where he hopes to be, the elephant is going to go where the elephant wants to go. And when the passions, then, they want to go their own way. There's very little that the reasoning can do to stop it. The elephant's going to have its own way. So what do? Give in to your passions? Do whatever you want, whenever you want it? Well, we know, of course not. But it's important to understand the power of the passions in the elephant and how natural they are. It's not something wrong, although there certainly are some, and I don't even need to go through those things that are going to hurt a person's life. I'm just talking about the things we all enjoy and need. Well, the rider has to be wise. He's got to train the elephant to go where the rider knows the team should go together, to reach their goals, to fulfill their potential, fulfill their objectives, while also in time allowing the elephant its pleasures. In other words, you accommodate the passions under the reasoning of best choices. We're assuming that the writer has thought through where potentials could be developed, where talents and skills could be honed and get better. They're related to growth and progress of the individual. And this is reasoning that the Greeks called phronesis when they looked at the development of reasoning versus overcoming the power of the passions. Strong reasoning that supports growth and progress. And that's a part of the training that the writer has to give the elephant. So what does it look like? Certainly with little children, you can't do a lot about controlling their passions. They don't have, their reasoning ability is not there. So many times it just is authoritative. It's got to come top down. You're doing this for this reason. We're not going to do this for this reason. You can have your candy later. You can have your cake later. You can play with your friends later. First, we have to do this. Very much comes from just an authoritative position while cultivating the ideas of it. But as children mature, and this is critical, their thought processes, their critical thinking skills, and their reasoning, they can understand and control the elephant because they understand where the writer wants to go, where the reasoning wants to go. They have a certain kind of phronesis, a reasoning ability. They still have their passions. This we have to remember if we're going to help them shape self-control. They have their short-term joys, their pleasures, their happiness. You know, children today, they like social media, they like video games, they like playing with their friends and just hanging out with no obligations, just having fun. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with these interests or pursuits. Of course, unless they take over their life, that's obvious. But the children need to be regulated and fit these pleasures under the framework of their growth and progress for goals of their childish reasoning and decision making. It's something they have to learn and experience. How much more gratifying are the goals of growth than the momentary pleasures? So this is where training, according to our definition of self-control, is important. We have to help children establish goals for growth. If we don't, their passions will run wild. I mean, you can see this in society. Once it's not driven by fulfilling growth potential or by fulfilling talent development, then you can squander every bit of potential that a child has just by indulging their temporary enjoyments and their immediate gratifications. The more goals, in fact, when children are young, the better. The more you can possibly fill up their time or help them fill up their time, because they'll discover two things. One, they can delay gratification on the one hand, and on the other hand, they will learn how satisfying it is to fulfill goals, and that's a part of creating self-control. As they grow older, they know, okay, I'm going to delay my temporary enjoyments so that I can reach the goal because I know that's more gratifying. But at the same time, we have to help them identify their passions and place the exercise of those passions, even the indulgence of those passions, in coordination with reaching goals. They have to learn the difference between short-term and long-term gratification. They have to learn to appreciate the value and satisfaction that will accompany their growth goals as versus indulging in momentary pleasures. And they have to understand that they do not need to shut off their temporal enjoyments, but to put them in context with their larger, more fulfilling goals. This is very, very important that they know you understand what's going on in them. They want to play. They want to have their enjoyments, and you understand that, and you're just helping them how to guide that elephant with the right kind of reasoning to have its fulfillment, but always in taking a back seat to the fulfilling of goals. Of course, this takes conversation after conversation after conversation, especially using yourself as an example. I think all my students know the wrestling I have to do on Saturday afternoons in the fall. Why? College football. I could spend the whole day, all the way into the evening, watching college football and forsake all the things I should have gotten done. So I've talked to them about how I have to get stuff finished and before I allow myself to plop down on the couch and watch TV. And it's the same thing with certain foods that I love, but I don't want to gain weight. These are all normal ways we control ourselves so that we can reach higher goals. Share with them your own struggles. That's what relieves them from this kind of, the only response to their temporary enjoyments is no, but it's not in context. And we do this with our children. When you clean your room, then we'll do this. When you get your homework done, we'll do this. And all I'm saying with self-control is this needs to be an ongoing conversation as the passions become really more addictive, so that they live their life for pleasures, which happens with young people in America today. Help them understand that and then put it into context of reaching their goals, their personal growth goals or objectives that they have. As I said before, I find children are relieved and they readily pick up this idea of being the rider over an elephant. Saying to them, sure, I understand you love playing video games, or you love texting your friends, or just playing out and hanging out with your friends. You can still do that. But first, take care of the things that will help you grow and become a better and better person. Whether it's studies at school, I notice middle school students begin to be more interested in sports. Well, that's going to require training. That's going to require time. That's going to require giving things up. That's all a part of this equation of self-control, making that elephant that would squander opportunities just to indulge temporarily, to make him go along with the long-term goals, with the beneficial goals, yet still taking time for its own indulgence. In my experience, not only do the children understand this logic, they learn to embrace it. It's kind of freeing to know that there's a time for each thing that you want to do and like to do, and at the same time reach your higher goals in order to realize their potentials without some scary notion that they're going to have to stop everything else and only work hard or whatever they assume it to be. Well, you can see this kind of time with the students will rob us of some of our time, because they need lots of coaching. They need lots of encouragement not to let go of their goals, yet at the same time, not accommodating their passions to the point where they end up squandering their potentials. So self-control can be cultivated over time through good discussions with them and through the proper understanding of what it is that's being controlled and how. Okay, thank you. I hope this is helpful.